Our next example is the ribbon. As you can see from these reference photos, they are pretty similar to each other. And I think the basic idea is that you can make a knot, you can make one of the loops, and one of the loose curved ends, and this little element down here. And you can recombine them and modify them to create some different variations, for example, with two loops or slightly different shaped loose ends. And I'm going to show you how to make the basic elements now. Okay, I'm going to use something like this photo as my reference. And basically what you want to do is you want to start with a simple plane. So for example, I'm going to start with something like that, set the segments to 1 by 1, collapse editable poly, and I'm going to select this edge on the end, and I'm going to randomly extrude it like that. Maybe rotate a few times. I'm not trying to copy my reference exactly, I'm just going for the general idea. Okay, so that's our basic shape. Just quickly and randomly extruding these. Alright, we're gonna finish this end a bit later. So let's check from perspective. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to move some of my edges, just randomly selecting them. And let's make it a bit more natural now. Okay, just move them. Let's move some in the opposite direction. Okay. Now let's select some edges and chamfer them. With something like 0 as the chamfer amount. Now when we move this polygon, you can sort of extrude it out. Okay, the main thing is to remember which ones you chamfered. Right, so now we have this very random looking ribbon. And we can try and check out how it looks with some Turbo Smooth on. Okay, actually let's move these a bit forward. And right, I'm gonna throw on a shell modifier just to give it some thickness. To make sure all the vertices are nice and welded. Right. Add the shell. And check with Turbo Smooth. So it's somewhat similar to our reference photo. I think we can add more detail. Just by connecting, I'm adding some new edges and I'm moving them around a bit. Okay, this area here is a bit too smooth. I'm gonna select some of the edges and I'm gonna chamfer them a bit just to make some creases sharper. Okay, so something like that, and just chamfer a bit like this. And looks pretty good. There's a little problem over here. And that's fixed. Right, now let's make this split end. I'm just gonna add an edge loop along the whole thing and extrude these two edges one by one. Maybe cut in something like this, just to make this part a bit sharper. Okay. Right. Maybe they're a bit too straight, so I'm adding some more edges and making the shape a bit more curved. Okay, that's fine. And you can reuse this ribbon element for many different variations. Okay, if you want a sharper crease, you can add edit poly above the shell. Select this edge ring and connect with two segments, pinch them out maybe. And you have a much sharper edge now. Alright, so that's the first element I wanted to show you. And I'm gonna copy it and delete edit poly. Delete some of the polygons. Like that. And we're going to modify it to make a loop. Okay. First I'm going to get rid of the center part. It's not really needed over here, so just loop the selection, convert the selection to vertices, then move back to edges, remove them, and when you switch back to vertices you can remove them as well. Okay, so something like that. Let's distort the shape into a more rounded one. All right. And then I'm gonna extrude some of these edges manually. Okay. And maybe scale the whole thing down a bit. And like that. Right, so we have to give some more three-dimensional shape to this part on the right side. Let's chamfer some edges. Okay. Move the polygons out to extrude them. And the reason why I'm doing this instead of simply extruding the polys is, I'm going to show you, if you extrude the polygon, it creates these edges on the sides as well, which are really not needed. And I have to do some extra work to delete them afterwards. It's a bit tricky to select them if you move the polys just a little bit. So it's easier to not create them in the first place. So by chamfering these edges, I'm duplicating the edges. And by moving the polygon, I'm extruding it out without creating any additional polys on top or the bottom. Alright, so this part looks a bit weird. Maybe this part as well. And that's a pretty good loop, I think. You can make it more detailed if you wish, but the basic idea is the same. Okay, you can just copy these loops to create the rest of the bow. You can modify them a little bit, just so it's not exactly the same. Alright, something weird going on here. I'm just gonna weld these vertices. Okay. Okay. And copy it to the other side. And finally we need to make a knot to connect these three loops together. And for the knot you have multiple options. Just something quite simple. Okay, for example, let's make a torus knot. Increase the radius, and decrease the radius. I'll scale it up a bit. Okay, let's check the segments. Let's make them a bit fewer. And collapse to editable poly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these long edge rings and I'm going to extrude them inwards a bit. Okay, like that. Turbo smooth. And that's a nice knot. And it's pretty easy to create as well. Okay, all that's left is making sure these parts fit together well. For example, this part should not be intersecting with the loop. So I'm going to select it and move it behind the loop. Make sure it enters the knot in the middle. Make a copy on the other side. Okay, and let's make the small hanging part on the bottom. Okay, I'm just gonna trace the outline first. Okay, make sure all the vertices are set to corner type. Collapse editable poly, and I'll be using the cut tool. I'm going to cut in the major folds. Okay, like that. Like that. And like that. Okay. All right. And we have to add some more polys to close this grid so there are no open vertices. I'm going to try and keep it four-sided, but it's not too important. So just make a nice clean grid from four-sided polys. Okay, let's make sure the tip is nice and pointy. So like that. And let's extrude the polygons a few times. So the bottom part is the smallest, so select everything but the bottom part, extrude a bit, okay, apply, deselect until the next level, apply, and one more time. There it has something like that. Okay. And I'm gonna select these loops. And I'm gonna extrude them inwards a bit. Right, weld everything with a low threshold. Select the outline, Shift plus move it back to extrude it a bit. Turbo smooth. Okay, and looks like we want to chamfer some of the edges a bit to define the shape a bit better. Okay, let's connect here to add some more geometry here as well. Maybe scale it a bit in this direction. Okay. Taper the top. I think that's fine for now. All right. Move up, and there you have it. The ribbon. Okay, and what I forgot to do was edit poly for these loops. I mean edge rings and chamfer the edges. I mean not chamfer, but connect to make the edges sharper. Like that, and same for this one. And you can delete turbo smooth of this one and drag and drop the edit poly. And this way it copies the modifier, and since the geometry is the same, the result is going to be the same as well. Okay. And you can easily modify this thing because it doesn't have a collapsed stack. You can modify the shape if you wish. So depending on the exact piece of furniture you're making, you can modify it to fit. For example, like that. And let's say this one has only 2 loops. Maybe let's make them a bit larger. So now you have 2 loops and a different shaped ribbon. As you can see, you can quite easily modify it. If you want to make it shorter, just decide where to terminate the ribbon. Delete some geometry to split the object into 2. And you have a shorter ribbon now. Okay, and you can also try rotating by using the soft selection. And for something like this ribbon, it works quite well if you enable the edge distance. So you can rotate it like that. And the results are pretty smooth. Okay, let's rotate it back like this. Okay, and you can just hide the end inside the knot, and that's fine. So as you can see, it's quite flexible, and that's the ribbon ornament.